So I'm going to be discussing Havven, which is a decentralized payment network. So my background is I run the largest cryptocurrency payment processor in Australia. We work with most of the major exchanges, and we process tens of millions of dollars worth of transactions a month now. And so we see at the edge of crypto and fiat some of the problems in getting money in and out of the ecosystem and various other issues. And so what we're proposing is effectively a decentralized solution for stability. So in order to sort of understand why this is important, we kind of have to go back to the Bitcoin white paper. And the Bitcoin white paper is titled A Peer-to-Peer Electronic Cash System. So the Bitcoin white paper is one of the most amazing documents ever written. If you haven't read it, it's definitely worth taking a look at. It's actually pretty accessible. There's some cryptography in there, but once you read it, you can kind of see the elegance of the solution. So in order to understand what we're trying to do, we need to break down title. So peer-to-peer. Bitcoin was intended to allow any two parties to transfer value between them without an intermediary. And that's really important because it allows for censorship resistance, it's permissionless, and it's been incredibly successful in that regard. Anyone here can transfer value in Bitcoin, anywhere in the world very quickly. The second component is that it's electronic. So the idea was that it would work over the internet, that you would be able to transfer value anywhere between any two parties over the internet. Arguably, it's probably not as fast as we would like, but compared to legacy systems that it was supposed to replace, it is quite fast. The final component, though, which is cash system, is where there's some issues. So the first part of that is that it's not actually anonymous. So cash is anonymous. If I take a briefcase full of cash and hand it to someone in this room, they don't need to know who I am. I don't need to know who they are. We can transfer value between us. And cash transactions are immutable. Once that briefcase is out of the room, it's gone. Now, Bitcoin is not anonymous, it's pseudonymous, and Satoshi understood this and at one point said, if you want true anonymity, the best bet is to use one-time addresses. But that's actually not even viable anymore, because in order to do that, you need to probably mine Bitcoin, and as we know, mining pools have kind of taken over, so for the average person, anonymity in Bitcoin is very difficult to achieve. But people have taken Bitcoin and they've extended it, so Zcash, Monero, and various other solutions have sort of pushed the boundary on anonymity. The final component, though, is stability, and this is where effectively it becomes non-viable. So Bitcoin as a cash system is effectively, it doesn't work. That's just the reality. So when you take a $10 note, and you go to purchase a coffee, you have an expectation that that coffee or that donut or whatever you're buying is going to cost about the same on a day in, day out, month in, month out basis, right? Over the short to medium term, you expect the purchasing power of your fiat currency to stay pretty stable. Bitcoin, obviously, as we've seen over the last, even 2 weeks, does not exhibit that property, which means that it's effectively non-usable as a cash payment system. So in order to understand why that is the case, we need to look at what it was a response to. So Bitcoin was a response to other centralized digital currencies. So DigiCash, eGold were both created before Bitcoin, and both of them failed pretty spectacularly because they were centralized. They were central points of failure. And so Satoshi's brilliance was to create the blockchain, which enabled people to basically enabled decentralized value transfer. But the problem was to incentivize miners to participate, there's the block reward. So the block reward, there's a fixed number of Bitcoin that can be issued, and a fixed monetary policy means that effectively it's a market-driven price and it's quite unstable, which is a problem if you want to build a cash system. So that decentralization has introduced volatility, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. You can actually maintain decentralization and get stability. And the way that you do that is you need to look at other centralized payment systems. So these centralized payment systems like DigiCash and eGold that failed because they tried to work outside of the normal financial ecosystems. But people like American Express and PayPal work within existing financial systems, and they've been quite successful. And the way that they work is that they charge fees for the transactions that are processed. So every time you swipe an Amex card, the merchant pays a fee. Those fees flow to Amex, the corporation, and that corporation is worth $100 billion. the structure of the American Express system is effectively a digital currency. So within the Amex ecosystem, money isn't actually moving around. They've got a proprietary database, it has got a ledger, there's debits and credits every time you swipe a card. They basically are just managing the relationships between people making purchases. And people trust it because American Express is a huge company. And so there's a sense that American Express has enough money outside of the system to settle all the debts within the system at any time. Now, how do you take that and create a decentralized system that exhibits those properties? What we're proposing is to create a system using a stablecoin, which is a stable unit of account that can be used as a medium of exchange. That stable unit of account, as you transact in it, will generate fees. Those fees will flow to collateral token holders, and so you can very easily derive a value from the collateral token from the fee yield within the network, in the same way that you can derive a value for Amex shares or PayPal shares because you know what the future cash flow of the system will be, or you can make an estimate of what the future cash flow will be. So if you do that and you create this collateralized system where you're effectively locking up collateral to give people confidence that the network over here that you're transacting in will be stable, you have created effectively a system that will allow anyone to transfer value peer-to-peer and actually act as a cash system, which is something that, as you can imagine, is critical for the decentralized infrastructure that everyone is building. So a couple of people have mentioned utility tokens, medium exchange tokens within existing systems. There are a number of problems in pricing with systems like that. And what we believe is that some of those systems that have launched over the last year will ultimately be replaced by decentralized systems that use a stable unit of account, that use a stable coin for transactions and payments within the system, but have a reward system where people who invest in or create the system get the fee yield from those transactions in a very similar way to what we're proposing with Havven. So the next question then is that actually viable? Can you financially create this system and will it be viable? If you look at the American Express example, American Express is worth around $100 billion and they generate about $35 billion worth of revenue for $5 billion worth of profit. Now, in order to generate that revenue and profit, they do about $1 trillion worth of transactions, just a little bit over. So the question is, if you have a system that's decentralized, it's obviously far more efficient, so you don't have all the costs there, but you still need to generate enough profit, $5 billion in the case of American Express, to do $1 trillion worth of transactions. So what we believe is that if you can get a velocity or a transaction volume that's around about 2 times what Amex has, the system will be viable and it will basically be able to scale up, which means that when we launch the network in our token sale in February, that the market cap at our hard cap will be $50 million. And against that market cap, we'll be able to issue $10 million worth of stable coins. So that's obviously not enough to support even a fraction of the transactions that are going on in decentralized systems. But as the network grows and as people get confidence that it's stable and as transaction volume increases, the collateral tokens, which are staking the system, will grow in value. And as those collateral tokens grow in value, you can issue more stablecoins, and you have this virtual cycle where effectively the system spools up and it is supported by itself. So that's Havven. As I said, we're launching a token sale on the 28th of Feb. If you're interested, come and find me, and we can have a chat about it. Thanks very much.